Welcome to a special NBA Finals preview edition of Beyond the Arc. I'm John Gonzalez, alongside in our Florida studios, Ashley Nicole Moss, and boots on the ground, our NBA insider, Bill Ryder, in Boston. Bill, you said you haven't eaten yet. Are you destined for like a little pregame lobster roll? What are we getting?
I've had 3 cups of Dunkin' Donuts coffee, so I don't know if that counts as no. I'm probably just gonna go media food at the arena. But 2 years ago, it was full lobsters, and I was gonna eat it, and then I
Wow.
watched Sam Amick get into his lobster, and then a bunch of lobster stuff came out and hit another TV guy who got very angry, and I didn't have the courage, Ash, to eat I don't know how to eat a lobster, so I think this time I'm just gonna bring a bib, maybe a backup shirt, and I'm going full lobster if the good people of the Celtics feed that to the media again this year.
I mean, you can always adventure out the next day, right? Tomorrow, the day in between, there's some time in between the
Yep.
games this time around. So you can go ahead and explore the good old city of Boston. I can't say I envy you, Bill.
It is good food,
Uh,
and I did snag a seat simply because at a full Italian place, the guy asked me, "Do you like Kyrie Irving?" And I go, "I get," and he's like, "I got a seat for you." And he
Oh,
got
come
me
on,
Nice.
Bill. I thought we got past
True.
this.
Well, it was like, oh yeah, he's fine. One of those.
Not cool.
Boston's a great city for eating. The North End is amazing. I will tell you what I wouldn't do. Having spent a lot of time at the Garden over the years, there is 0% chance that I'm eating shellfish in the Garden for a pregame meal. Like that's taking your life into your own hands. So I wish you Godspeed on that one. All right, later in the show, we're going to discuss the Lakers, the latest on their coaching search and the drama that has materialized there. We thought it was going to be JJ. Doesn't look like it now. And we'll give our predictions on who will win the NBA Finals. But first, finally, after a long wait and a long layoff, game one is tonight in Boston. Celtics looking for their 18th championship. That would put them one ahead of the Lakers. And the Mavs are looking for just their second. And it would be the first time a 5 seed has ever won the championship. Bill, you're there. Tell us how did media avail go? What did you learn so far?
The people in the streets of Boston have a lot of energy. I thought media day yesterday was maybe the most. Yeah, they did. John knows. Ash, you know too.
Yeah.
They're mean when they're mean. It was one of the most low key media days for the NBA Finals I've ever covered. Maybe the most low key.
Hmm.
And I was thinking about this morning. Not that it was. Not the guys didn't say anything. There wasn't the same energy. As you know, they'll have most of the players on the floor, but they'll pull the big names into the conference room, and so you sort of go back and forth and talk to some of the guys, and go to the conference room, and you can ask questions of Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. And there was just a real low key thing going on. I think maybe it's just there's a lot of pressure for both of these teams in different ways. Doncic spoke about it a little bit, where he said you never know if you're going to get back, and I do think this expectation we've talked about that Boston is supposed to win this thing was weighing a little bit, because there was none of the exuberance or the cockiness or just the giddy energy that I've seen at finals I've covered before. It was very different.
That's interesting, right? Because I think that when we talk about Boston and Dallas, it's a tale of two drastically different teams when we talk about this particular series, right? You have Dallas, where nobody expected them to get this far. I think on this pod, I expected Western Conference Finals, but I think unanimously most people expected the Denver Nuggets to be back in this position with the chance to repeat. So you have this one team that's kind of, I don't want to say quite a Cinderella story, because I don't know if it's that far-fetched, but it's definitely not what was expected, right? And then you have this Boston Celtics team who has been in this position or the conference finals consistently for the past 6 seasons and have always fallen short in some way, shape, or form. So everybody's looking at them like, okay, we know you guys can get this far, same story, different year. Is this the year, though, that the story changes and you actually win the championship? So it's interesting when you look at that and you take into consideration Bill saying this was a low-key media day, because if anything, I would feel like when it comes to the Dallas Mavericks, maybe they'd have a little bit more pep in their step, but because I guess they weren't expected to be here, maybe there's a little bit more humility with the way that they're approaching the media. And then when you talk about the Celtics, again, there's a little bit more walking on eggshells with the way that you're approaching the media, because you've done this before and you've done it a few times.
I wonder how interested maybe casual NBA fans are in this series, because the Celtics, they're always a big draw. They're in a historic franchise. But as Ash said, not a lot of people outside of Dallas, or maybe even some people inside Dallas, thought that the Mavs would end up here. You've got some fun storylines like Kyrie going back to Boston, and you've got like some big duos in Kyrie and Luka, and then the Jaysons. But like what kind of engagement do we think that this? I was asked on HQ the other day whether or not this was one of the most anticipated finals in recent memory, and I was like, no, I don't think so at all.
Yeah, no,
Go ahead, Bill. No, go ahead.
I was sorry, Ash. I don't think it is either, but I'm excited about it because it's Luka and really Kyrie versus the Celtics. But yeah, Ash, sorry to step on you there. I'm into it, but this is even Warriors Celtics was more tantalizing. There's no LeBron, there's no Steph. It is a different, I think, energy for the series, just like it sort of was at Media Day, Ash.
I think there's a few things that play into this, right? I think outside of the city of Boston, and John, you live there, so you know this, most people don't really like the Boston Celtics. I mean, and Boston sports in general, right? So nobody is really outside of the city of Boston rooting for the Celtics to really win this whole thing. It's not like they're a well-liked franchise, right? When you talk about the Dallas Mavericks, yes, you have Luka. Some people love Kyrie. I am one of them. And some people aren't big Kyrie fans. And then you also have a bunch of guys on this team that aren't big names that you're not maybe familiar with. They're younger guys. You're just getting introduced to them on the big stage. So if you're not a Kyrie fan and you're not a diehard Luka fan, there really isn't much for you to root for in terms of, I guess, the storylines or more of an emotional connection. But I think that if you are a basketball fan, right, and you just love good basketball and you're just a hoop head like that, then this is a great matchup because there is a lot when you talk about the basketball aspect. You have Luka and Kyrie, that duo. You have them as individuals. You have Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown on the other side. You have Drew Holiday and Derek White, which have been an absolutely impressive defensive backcourt this year. So there is a lot of intricacies in this series if you are a true basketball fan. But to your point, John, if you're just more of a casual basketball fan, I don't know how invested you are in either of these teams.
Yeah, I not only lived in Boston, but I also lived in Dallas for a while. So it's the two cities that I spent some time in. And I have friends in both. And I can tell you without reservation, I am very much hoping that my friends in Dallas end up with a parade rather than my friends in Boston, because the friends in Boston would be absolutely insufferable if they get number 18. They're insufferable anyway. You mentioned some things that you're excited about. For me, the matchups here are fascinating because, I'm really interested to see who the Celtics start out with on Luka. They have a number of different options. And then in reverse, Bill, I think it's really interesting. Luka and Kyrie have been better defensively this postseason, but there's really nowhere to hide them against the Celtics. Celtics 1 through 6 is going to be a matchup problem for both of those guys.
I mean, the thing about this series, which is interesting, is that everybody's going to guard Luka more or less, and everybody's going to guard Kyrie more or less. I don't know, right? And people were asked about it. Missoula was asked about it. Missoula really doesn't love sharing anything with the media. I'm assuming it's going to be maybe Jaylen Brown starting on Luka with some Tatum, but we'll just see who Dallas hunts for Luka and Kyrie. The matchup that I'm most interested in, and again, we'll see how much this matchup happens this game and over the course of the series, is Drew Holiday against Kyrie. And by the way, Drew Holiday could also spend some time on Luka. So these things could change and I could be wrong, but I think you're not really going to stop Luka. I think I said this the other day with us or maybe on HQ. Luka sometimes stops Luka. He'll get a little inefficient and not move the ball. But for whatever reason, he's actually been getting into the offense much more quickly, and his usage rate has been a little bit lower in this finals than it was over the course of the season. And I think it's translated to not just better offense for his team, but he's been outstanding at times in last series. He's going to get his. It's Kyrie. If Luka's being Luka and Kyrie looks like the guy LeBron's calling the most talented player ever, I think that is a really big problem for Boston. So Drew Holiday, there's a lot of matchups. Drew Holiday versus Kyrie Irving, I am here for it. It will be physical. It's the best, maybe one of the best defenders in the NBA, especially this time of year against a guy in Kyrie who's been magical over the course of this run. That is the matchup that I'm looking for. And let me add this too, in part because Drew Holiday's not just doing it for a championship. He's going to have thousands of screaming, angry, pissed off, mean-spirited Celtics fans that he's carrying the torch for every time Kyrie touches the ball. It's going to be great.
Bill, were you there when Joe Mazzulla said unless they change the light bulbs in the arena, it wasn't going to be any brighter than it was last year? Listen, I feel like low-key he kind of snapped. It was low-key a bar. It was a weird bar, but it was a low-key one.
I didn't. I was elsewhere in the building, but I felt a ripple in the condescension force, right? Kind of like I kind of turned over my shoulder, randomly insulted for no reason. It's like you can have this snarkiness, Ash, you're right. What I think is interesting is that a sign of Joe Mazzulla just being over legitimate questions? Because you're going to get asked that or is the guy feeling the pressure? Because a lot of these teams go as their coaches go. I don't even know how old Mazzulla is. 17, 35. I mean, he's a young
He's 35.
he's a young guy, and there's a lot. Yeah, he's 35. I was just a little joke there. I know he's 30. He's not 17. It's a lot, John Ash, to carry, right? I'm the media. We're the media. I didn't love it. I mean, come on, man.
I
Just
thought
answer
it was
the question.
kind of funny.
You don't need to get mad.
I thought it was.
You liked it? Oh,
listen, he's a weird dude, but I low key kind of thought it was a humorous statement. It wasn't like, ha ha, he's a comedian, should take this act in the road. But I was like, okay, you kind of snapped in a weird, dorky, nerd way, I guess. I don't know. Just trying to give him a.
Is that a compliment?
It's like an olive branch I'm trying to extend. I don't know. That's all I got.
I can't wait to see how that continues with Joe Mazzulla as this series unfolds. He is extremely strange, but it is like oddly entertaining. So I'm looking forward to more of that. But finally, the NBA Finals are upon us. Game 1 is tonight. We have so much more to discuss. We're going to continue the conversation on the other side. This is Beyond the Arc on CBS Sports Network. Welcome back to Beyond the Arc on CBS Sports Network. You can also find us wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Please download, subscribe, leave us a review. We're previewing the NBA Finals Game 1 tonight. So many storylines to talk through. I got a couple of questions I want to run past you guys. Some topics that have been making the rounds that I think that we should discuss as well. We'll start with the two duos. There's been a lot made, right? These are the top line talent, the marquee talent. So of the duos, Luka and Kyrie, and then Jaylen and Jayson, which duo would you rather have for this series?
I'm going to go Luka and Kyrie for this one, and I will tell you why. I think, yes, to Kyrie's discredit, if you will, there are times, and we've spoken about this on the podcast, that maybe he takes too much of a back seat, but you always know he's going to show up, and usually it's right on time. Now, we have seen games throughout this postseason, specifically last series against the Timberwolves, where he went ahead, put his foot on the gas from the very beginning, and ultimately that worked in the favor of the Dallas Mavericks. We need to see that from him in this particular series. I don't know what the schemes that Jason Kidd is going to be drawing up, but it should involve Luka and Kyrie cooking as much as they can as a duo throughout 4 quarters of this game as possible. My concern about Jayson Tatum is we've been having this conversation about him, and I think people get confused because when you look at his stat line, you say, incredible stat line, 30, 10, and 9, or 30, 29, 9, and 8, whatever it is for that day, right? And you say, he's been balling. But being effective and being efficient are two different things. And I think sometimes he's effective, but he's not always the most efficient, or vice versa, depending on how you want to look at it. That's a concern when you talk about this duo of Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum. Now, the silver lining for me is Kristaps Porzingis. If you get a Porzingis that is healthy, and again, you don't know until he gets out there and you really test him when you're the Dallas Mavericks, he helps to fill that gap of the question mark about Jayson Tatum, because that guy right there can give you 20 plus on a good night and even more on a great night. It's going to help fill the gaps a little bit, but if I had to go ahead and take him out of the equation and just look at duo for duo, give me Luka and Kyrie all day.
I'm with you, Ash. Look, I'm all about debates. Let's debate everything. I'm here for it. How is this a debate? I mean, it is the team that is top heavy, I think, clearly in the Dallas Mavericks, clearly. I mean, Luka Doncic is going to win an MVP in his career, was a top 3 MVP candidate this past year. And Kyrie Irving he's the best closer, I think, probably if you want to do fourth quarter on, certainly second half on in these playoffs. The guy's won an NBA championship. Maybe LeBron's not wrong when he says he is the most talented or one of the most talented players in the history of the game against a much, much deeper team. And I think Ash makes a really good point, because I think the Jayson Tatum conversation about question marks about him late in games ends up inevitably just going to people who scream, look at the numbers, he's amazing, or the hot takers who scream, he's a loser. And I think it's a lot more complicated. Tatum this year reminds me of the first year I covered LeBron in Miami, where if you just looked at the box scores, LeBron James was amazing. If you covered the team every day like I did, you saw sometimes in those rare moments that matter in the regular season where LeBron sort of vanished in the fourth quarter, and you wondered whether or not that would happen in the playoffs, and then it did against the Dallas Mavericks. And LeBron later talked about that was the year he had to learn how to win. Now, Tatum's had those chances to learn. Maybe he's going to be extraordinary in the fourth quarter. Maybe he's going to be amazing. I just think it's a legitimate question mark for all the reasons we've talked about. We've hit the numbers before. So, John, for me, clearly to win an NBA championship, you've got the best duo in Dallas, but you also have a pretty good tandem in Tatum Brown, and they've got a much deeper and better team around.
Yeah, I think you're right that if we're just talking duos, I'd rather have Luka and Kyrie because Luka's the best player for either team on the floor. But there is something to be said about the Jays just because of the defense component. I mean, on the one hand, like I think that the hate on Jayson Tatum has gone way too far. Those two guys, Jalen and Jayson, in the last 50 years, they are the youngest duo to enter the finals, averaging 25 points per game each. I mean, they're really good players offensively. But the reason why I think, Bill, you had said, how is it a debate? And I don't know that it is, except for when you factor in defense. Like, those two guys are really good defenders, and Luka and Kyrie are playing better defensively than they have previously in their careers. They're certainly giving a lot more effort, but Jayson and Jalen are legitimately good defenders and can switch 1 through 4, 1 through 5 in a pinch. So that's where I think like it's at least a conversation to have. But yeah, I'm with you guys. I'd take Luka and Kyrie too. I'm interested in this as well. So we're just talking about Luka and Jayson Tatum and how people perceive them, right? Depending on who wins this, who has the bigger impact to their legacy? Like if Luka wins or Jayson Tatum wins, what's the bigger boost here?
Oof. Let me ask a follow-up. Are we presuming that they're not going to get back? Because I think the answer changes if 3 years from now the loser comes back and wins a championship. But I'll answer. I'll just answer it in a vacuum. I think it's hard. I think it's a bigger short-term. I don't think the Celtics are going anywhere anytime soon. Yeah, the West is going to get brutal. I still think it's a bigger knock on Jayson Tatum. And to your point, John, I think it's more correctable as well. I just think it's going to be easier to get here from the East over the next 5 years, let's say, than it is in the Western Conference, as best we can prognosticate now. But fair or not fair, and I probably go further toward there are legitimate questions about Tatum late in games, but don't go to he's a bum, as some people have in a very silly way done. But if they don't win this series, and there will be no nuance. If they don't win the series and he's amazing, people are just going to say it was Tatum. But if they don't win the series, and he does again, say, in overtime or in the fourth quarter, just disappear for the final 8 minutes, and instead of playing a team that's very beatable, you play the Mavs, and Kyrie's doing Kyrie things, and Tatum goes 1 for 5 over the final 5 minutes, and they lose, I think he's going to get painted with that brush. I think he's going to be seen as fair or not fair. Life ain't fair. As a James Harden level guy or a Karl Malone or whatever. Dak Prescott. I'm sorry, Ash. I don't know why I'm taking shots at. I don't know why I'm taking shots at Dak. That was not cool. Strange. It's just the Boston. I'm drinking Dunkin' Donuts. It must make me mean because it's the Boston inside me all of a sudden. I think it's Tatum because I think that you are going to give more benefit to the doubt if Luka loses. And because they're underdogs, then people are Jayson Tatum if the Celtics, who are supposed to win, don't get it done.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment. I think there's multiple layers here, right? Earlier we spoke about this Mavs team. A lot of people didn't have them going this far. I think most people thought it was going to be the Denver Nuggets, possibly two-peating, right? That did not happen. So you're looking at the Mavericks under a different microscope, but you're also, I think some people may not expect them to win the whole thing because of the team that they're going against, right? Now, when you look at Boston, said this earlier, they've been in this situation, or at least the conference finals, consistently for the past 6 seasons, right? So you have fallen short every single time. Hasn't been many changes to this organization. Yes, we know the whole Ime Udoka situation, but when you talk about the team, they haven't gotten worse. They've gotten better or they've stayed the same. So the chemistry factor, you can't even use that as an excuse because your core, your duo, your superstars of Tatum and Brown have been together the entire time. You've added pieces around them, but those pieces have made them better, not worse, as a team. So you have everything that you need. You've gone through an injured Miami this year. You've gone through an injured Cleveland this year. You've swept the Indiana Pacers. You didn't have to face a fully healthy New York Knicks team, which a lot of people thought could have pushed a series to 7. So you've had a very easy path to get to this point. Probably easier than they've had in the past few seasons. If you're unable to get this done, there are going to be questions. I don't even know if the questions are going to be specifically about Jaylen Brown because I think that there's a weird perception of him and his importance for this team, and hopefully it's changing with this particular postseason. But with Jayson Tatum, there's always been this conversation about, is he a superstar? Is he right outside the superstar tier? Is he the leader of this team? Can he be the leader of this team? There's always been questions about him in the postseason. If he's unable to get this done with a relatively easy path to get to this position and going against a team that a lot of people did not think was even going to be in this position, there are going to be question marks about Tatum as a star. There are going to be question marks about Tatum as a leader. And ultimately, there are going to be question marks about the Boston Celtics as a unit and as a team, and if they are championship contenders or just a really good regular season team and a really good postseason team until you get to the big final games.
Yeah, I think that's really what it is, right? Like Luka is kind of playing with house money here, and for Jayson Tatum, winning would just like get a bunch of people off his back. I don't think the Celtics are going anywhere anytime soon. They're going to be the favorites to win the Eastern Conference again next season. But if they don't win it this season, that's all you're going to hear about is, oh, they didn't get it done last year. Can they finally get it done this year? And it's wild, too, because Jayson Tatum is 26 years old. He's played in five conference finals, right? He's 41st all time in postseason scoring. And this blew me away, too. Since entering the league, he leads active players in postseason games, minutes, and points. And unless he self-immolates or spontaneously combusts before this thing is over, he'll end up after this one top 5 in rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks postseason. He's been really good. He's just missing that one thing, and everybody keeps focusing on for the right reason. But we'll see if he can get everybody to leave him alone after this one. All right, we got more things to talk about. We're going to take another quick break. And then on the other side, I'm interested to see what you guys think about who you trust more in the clutch in the series. I suspect I know the answer, but we'll find out. This is Beyond the Arc on CBS Sports Network. Welcome back to Beyond the Arc. John, Ashley, and Bill previewing the NBA Finals. We've discussed this topic a lot on this show, but we haven't discussed this topic specific to this matchup. So you have the Mavs and the Celtics, and I'm curious, Bill, who you trust more in close games in the clutch, because I think it's going to be a fairly close series, and some of these might come down to the wire.
Yeah, this is an easy one for me, the Mavs. Although if you're a Boston supporter, you can point out that technically speaking, right, like the NBA defines clutch moments as 5 minutes or less and 5 points or closer, and the Celtics went 4-0 in those situations en route to the NBA Finals in this postseason. They also did that playing, through no fault of their own, teams that, as Ashley talked about earlier, were missing some pretty key guys in some pretty key moments, but hard to take away Jaylen Brown hitting that three and that win in overtime against the Pacers. That just broke the Pacers' spirit at the start of that series. But Luka and Kyrie have been doing this throughout the playoffs. I trust them more. And again, I know that I can trust Luka and Kyrie because I've seen that. I think I can trust Jaylen Brown, and he's done this, by the way, regular season. In those rare moments they've played close games, Jaylen Brown's been great. The numbers say that. And I think it's a question mark for Jayson Tatum. Doesn't mean he can't do it. Doesn't mean because he hasn't been extraordinary in those moments the last 3 years over the course of the whole regular season that he can't be extraordinary here. But it is a question mark, and that question mark says to me, give me Dallas if they're really close games.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? Because if we can throw that graphic up there one more time with the difference between Boston and Dallas in close games, you do have win-loss for the Celtics is 3-0, 3-1 for the Mavericks. So it's not like it's a substantial difference between these two teams. Now, this is the final 5 minutes with the score within 5 points. Now, in doing some research, though, when you look at Boston during the regular season, that's where things get a little bit interesting, right? Because they had the best record when the point differential of 10 or below this season. They sorry, I have that backwards. When they were playing a team where the point differential of 10 or below this season, their record was actually 28-18. So not that great, but when it was above 10, it's 42-0. So this is a team that likes to go ahead and be leading. This is a team that does not like to go ahead and be in close games, at least in the regular season. Now, you can say, well, regular season, postseason, drastically different. Sometimes the numbers will go ahead and tell that story. But I don't think a team changes its DNA that drastically. And I think that if you put Boston in a situation where they have to play catch up, because they say playing from behind is debilitating, it's exhausting, especially when you have a Kristaps Porzingis who's just being implemented back into this situation in the biggest series of the year. Boston's going to want to go ahead and establish their dominance early. And if Dallas makes them play at their speed and makes it where they are constantly right behind everything Boston does, every shot you make, we're going to make one too. If this gets down to the wire in the fourth quarter, I know what the numbers say for Boston in the postseason, but they still are the Boston Celtics in the regular season. They're still that team. So I would take the duo of Dallas every time, all the time when it comes to close games in the clutch?
I'll take Dallas too, because you've got two guys who are really good closers. But I think it's a little misleading because, I mean, we definitely dump on Boston a lot. And there were some games, and we highlighted it on the podcast earlier this year, where Jayson Tatum likes to get into hero iso ball instead of just like playing their offense. But they did have the fourth best winning percentage in the clutch. So during the regular season. So it's like, I don't know.
But
they were okay.
So let me respond to that, because John, you're absolutely right. And this, with all reference to Mark Twain, I know there are lies, damn lies, in statistics, so this might qualify. But because what you're referencing, clutch time, as Ash said, 5 minutes left or less, or overtime, 5 points or closer. But if you get into it, and I think I brought this up on the pod before, if you make it that exact matrix, but 3 points or closer, and there was a pretty healthy sample size this year, all of a sudden the Celtics' best net rating in the game and the third best of all time drops to 22 this year. So like really close game, right? Really close. All of a sudden they fall off a ledge. Is that because they're really, really shakeable, or is it because it's a statistical anomaly like Mark Twain was talking about? You can just juke the numbers the wire style. We're going to find out, because I think Dallas is going to play these guys close in several games.
Yeah, I do too. I think there's going to be some really close games in this series, and I'm looking forward to it because we've had over a week without basketball, and now basketball is finally back. One more question for you guys before we move along, and we're going to talk the Lakers and their crazy dramatic head coaching search coming up. But for these two fan bases, like obviously much different historically, right? The Celtics are looking for their 18th championship. That would put them one ahead of the Lakers all time. What an incredible accomplishment that would be. And the Mavs looking for just their second championship ever. Who do you think it would mean more to in terms of their fan bases?
Dallas.
Ash, what do you think?
Dallas. Listen,
that's interesting.
Boston, yes, looking for championship number 18, but 18 is a lot of championships. Now, some of the people that are going to be in that arena, maybe they don't remember all 18, you know? And then for them, it's a different experience, right? It's different hearing about your team winning a championship. It's different seeing your team win a championship. Not discrediting that. But this is a winning organization. Boston is a winning city. Name a sport, they're winners. Yeah. This is what they do, right? So it's not like it's not something they've ever experienced. Look at that. Most titles in NBA history, tied with the Lakers at 17. This is a team that knows how to win and has won a lot. When you talk about Dallas, not nearly as much success when it comes to NBA history and winning the NBA Finals as Boston had, but also looking at it from a different perspective. You have Kyrie Irving, who won a championship with LeBron James and has had a very tumultuous relationship with the NBA media. A lot of people would say things like he was a locker room cancer, that he was the problem. He's jumped around from multiple teams trying to find that sense of peace and being able to create a legacy for himself away from LeBron. You have Luka. Bill spoke about this on the pod. A lot of people in the NBA question whether you could win a championship with Luka. So outside of the fan base and winning for the city, it would mean a lot for those two guys to push away from both of the narratives that have kind of followed them these past few years and say, look, we did it. They didn't think we could, but we did it. So I'm going Dallas for sure.
All right, I'm going to go the other side. I've already got The Wire and Mark Twain in the show, so I want to get Harry Potter, even though I don't have the books behind me like I would at my house. Do you guys know what a Dementor is, right? Harry Potter Dementors? Boston Celtics fans are Dementors. They feed on the misery of other people. They feed on the misery of other people. And the misery of Kyrie Irving losing this thing would be the holy grail of their fandom experience. And I'll also throw in this. Yes, the Celtics have a lot more, but not in this generation of fans. The Mavericks have won the last NBA championship, not Boston. And it's kind of cool when like your young fans or your kids, right? You get to introduce them to winning for the first time. So that joyous thing, plus just feeding off the misery of Kyrie Irving, I think it might mean more to the Celtics fans.
Oh, Lord.
I am unaware of the Harry Potter Dementor thing, but Schadenfreude is a concept. Schadenfreude is a concept I'm very familiar with as a Philadelphian, and that's exactly what you're describing there. So for me, I'm hoping for good things for my Mavericks and Dallas friends, and much worse things for my Boston Celtics fan. I don't know what that is either.
I will tell you the entire, you guys obviously can't hear this, but the entire control room just gasped at John saying he was not familiar with Harry Potter and the Dementors. Like, what?
I'm familiar with Harry Potter as a concept, but specific Harry Potter stuff.
No, you're not.
I missed my window. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we have to discuss the latest news on the Lakers' dramatic head coaching search. That's coming up. This is Beyond the Arc on CBS Sports Network. Welcome back to Beyond the Arc on CBS Sports Network. John, Ashley, and Bill here. We would normally just be talking about the NBA Finals, but leave it to the Lakers to worm their way into this show. Everybody thought, just a couple days ago, gang, we thought this was JJ Redick's job, done and dusted, all locked up, and then all of a sudden, here comes Woj off the top rope. He had reporting today that the Lakers are, quote, relentless in their pursuit of UConn head coach Dan Hurley, and that he's been their main target all along for the Lakers, that they're set to make him a massive long-term offer. That they want him to be around to span not just the LeBron and AD era, but beyond that. He just won back-to-back national titles at UConn. Only John Wooden was the last guy to win 3 straight, but it would obviously take Bill a massive offer to pry him away from UConn. What do you make of this? This is madness to me, because I thought it was going to be JJ, and now all of a sudden enter Dan Hurley.
Yeah. And our own Matt Norlander confirming earlier today that Hurley's told his player. So it's obviously, and it's Woj, so you know it's real. It's obviously real enough that he is sharing with the guys that, hey, this is something that could happen. Okay, so I talked to a few people in the Lakers organization this morning, one by text, one by phone. And they push back on my perspective, so they're going to disagree with this. I think it's in a really ambitious plan, and I understand the reasoning for it. You want to be able to develop your own talent because of the way the CBA now constricts the ability to be flexible. If you spend too much money, you're not going to be able to just go out and throw cash around in the glitz of being a Laker and wearing the purple and gold to bring in enough guys to win. So maybe Hurley can develop players and create a culture. There is not a track record. There is not a history of college coaches who make this leap succeeding. You can point to Brad Stevens, but he got burned out in that job. He now runs basketball ops for the Celtics. So maybe that's the most successful example when he came from Butler. I suppose the other example, and maybe the best comp, is Billy Donovan, because back when he had won back-to-back championships and went to Orlando and then changed his mind and then decided eventually to go to Oklahoma City, they were talking about him maybe being one of the great coaches in the history of college basketball. And I don't know, has he succeeded? I mean, he's no longer with the Thunder. I guess it worked for Billy Donovan, who's in Chicago now. I don't know if it worked for Oklahoma City. So I understand the Lakers' reasoning. I understand what they're after, some stability, a long-term program or plan, the ability to develop players, including probably Bronny James. I am highly skeptical about making that leap, no matter who you are. And I think it's interesting the Lakers have now put themselves in a position where their top 2 candidates are a guy that has no NBA experience versus a guy who has no coaching experience outside of coaching his middle school son. And it doesn't mean it won't work. These are high risk-reward things, so maybe the ceiling is there. But I think in either case, Ash, John, I think there's a floor that's really freaky if you're a Lakers fan.
There's so much to unpack here, Ashley, including just a few days ago, Shams reporting that the Lakers were zeroing in on JJ. So we're all like, okay, it's going to be JJ now. Now, all of a sudden, it looks like it's going to be Dan Hurley. And I wonder how that's going to go over with JJ's podcast partner, LeBron James, who, as soon as this thing came out, immediately everybody resurfaced a tweet from LeBron. So JJ had Dan Hurley, like a month and a half ago, had Dan Hurley on his podcast. And so when they put out the podcast on social media, LeBron James responded to it on Twitter. And here's the tweet. You can see it on the screen here. He's so damn good, along with his staff, super creative with their offense. Love it. How do you think this is going to go over with LeBron, Ash?
I mean, LeBron already knows. At the end of the day, this is not a secret to LeBron. You don't think that he knows that this offer was coming down the pipeline for this situation if it ends up happening? I think at the end of the day, he knew Dan Hurley was going to be in the conversation. He knew before the media knew. He knew before Woj knew. He knew before we knew. This is LeBron. I do think
JJ knew too, apparently.
Listen, maybe JJ knew, maybe he didn't know, but he knew when he woke up. It's definitely interesting, right? But I feel like, look, we have this conversation about the Lakers, and I agree with all of Bill's points. We spoke about this earlier today on HQ. I think that, Dan Hurley has a lot of great aspects about him when you're talking about a coach that can help a young team. And if you take LeBron out of the equation, you take Anthony Davis out of the equation, there's a lot of young players on the Lakers that you would assume will be there for X amount of seasons, not given any blockbuster trades or moves. And the reports that they may be going after Bronny has also been circulating for a while. So a college coach is great at systems, great at player development, great at, player relationships, because you have to be. You're coaching young men and women depending on where you find yourself as a head coach. But again, we're talking about the wrong things with the Lakers. The Lakers have to figure out who's also going to be wearing a Lakers jersey. And I guess that's hard to do when you don't know who's going to be your head coach. But if I'm the Lakers and I'm the Lakers fan, make a decision. We have a lot of things that we need to go ahead and figure out when it comes to this team, and not a lot of time to do it. I need a decision to be made. So whether it's JJ, whether it's Dan Hurley, whether it's Bill Ryder, pick a name, pick a coach, and make it happen. There's so many things to focus on this team that I feel like this coaching just free-for-all has just been so chaotic and not at all comforting if you're a Lakers fan.
Can I jump in real quick on the LeBron? I'm with that. I just want, and I was told that he knew. I mean, it's green light, red light. It's that children's game, right? But an NBA person made a point to me today that I thought was really interesting. And that is that it's one thing to court someone, it's another thing to live with someone. Half the marriages in this country end in divorce. If you ever had a roommate who was your best friend that stopped being your best friend because you had to live together, it can feel like a really good idea till it's not. Hurley's not getting hired. Nobody's getting hired without LeBron's approval. But this NBA person from the league today pointed out to me when I was trying to figure out what was going on that Dan Hurley is a yeller. He's an intense guy. His approach is
that's what they need, Bill. They need some moxie.
No, but it's not.
Nah, it doesn't work at the pros.
That's not what they will accept. And so the minute he yells at LeBron James, whatever it is, it's not going to work, in my opinion. And the minute you ask a guy to basically change his personality in order to succeed somewhere because of a bigger personality, it's going to be hard to make it work. So there might be a world where Dan Hurley's great. And one last thought, sorry to keep the source pointed out, this person in the NBA pointed out, his view was the reason Brad Stevens worked is because he's quiet and cerebral and not a loud, hard case kind of guy. And this person said that is the easiest transition. These guys are the highest paid people in their programs or their states who get to yell at young people, and it's a totally different reality managing grown men in the NBA. And I just worry about Dan Hurley's fit.
Tom Thibodeau's a yeller. Just saying.
Yeah, that's true.
Tom Thibodeau's a yeller, and his guys will run through a brick wall for him. I'm just saying, maybe LeBron got to toughen up a little bit.
Sometimes literally, which doesn't always work out great for them. I do. This might be a little too inside baseball, but I just find it fascinating that only a few days ago we had Shams saying that they were zeroing in on JJ, and then Woj comes off the top rope and goes, "No, you got that completely wrong." So it doesn't look great for Shams either, but. I don't know that it's a great fit for either of these two guys to take this job, but somebody's got to do it. So I guess Dan Hurley, get that bag. All right, we're going to take one more break, and then we're going to come back to the finals. It's prediction time on the other side. This is Beyond the Arc on CBS Sports Network. Welcome back to Beyond the Arc. John, Ashley, and Bill wrapping up our finals preview episode. Celtics coming to this one, gang. Heavy favorites, minus 210, Mavs plus 175. That's actually gone down a little bit. It opened even bigger. We have a poll on our YouTube page that people should check out. You can find our YouTube page at Beyond the Arc CBS. Kind of surprising. I want to get your reaction to it. The Mavs are what our listeners and viewers are picking to win this series in 6 or 7 games. Also interesting, guys, approximately 80% of the money wagered in U.S. sports books has been placed on the Mavs. Those two things surprising to me. Ash, what do you think about this, and which way are you going in this series?
I feel like the 59% was all in my Twitter page yesterday. I'm going Mavs in 7 also. That is my prediction. I know earlier in the year when I did a social video for CBS, I went with, I think the Celtics were going to go ahead and win a championship this year, but I have seen a lot of promise in Dallas. I have seen a lot of promise in Luka and Kyrie as a duo. I've seen a lot of things that make me a little bit nervous about the Boston Celtics when you talk about their duo of Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown, leaning more towards Jayson Tatum. I'm going with Jason Kidd winning as a player in 2011 and now winning as a coach in 2024, Mavs in 7.
All right, buckle up for this one. By the way, I haven't put actual money down on this, so how strong is my conviction just to make a prediction? But I might. I think I might. Now, I'll say this. the 85% of the public on the Mavs does not bode well for this because you want to fade the public almost all the time. And that's almost a Celtics lock. Like that fact, John, that you just gave us is almost a straight universal guarantee that Boston's going to win. But before I heard that, I made up my mind. So, okay, the fact that I think Kyrie's in his happiest, best place and I'm buying what he's selling as a leader and a more mature guy, that's one thing. The fact I think Luka is not just the best player in this series, I think you said earlier, John, but I think he is playing the best basketball of his life in the moments that matter. The Dallas defense is the best in the NBA going back to the seventh. My very real skepticism and worries about Jayson Tatum late in games, and the Celtics are really close games. The question mark about Kristaps Porzingis and how that calf is going to hold up. Mavs in 5, baby. Go big or go home. I'm going. It's 13-1, so I'm actually thinking about. I'm thinking about putting a little. Yeah, let's go. Forget this.
That's crazy, Bill. Come on.
Crazy like a fox.
That is a bold
way
prediction.
To jump out the window.
I can't believe the two of you are putting me in this situation. I hate to do this. I said this on HQ the other night when I was on with Brad Bakken and they asked us about our prediction. I absolutely do not want this to happen, but I think it's going to be the Celtics. I picked the Celtics in 7 on HQ. I'm upgrading that to Celtics in 6. I think it's a really bad matchup for the Mavs. The Mavs, look, they just beat 2 top 5 defenses, and they looked really good doing it. I just think that the Celtics have more looks and more players that they can throw at those 2 top guys, and you're going to be asking a lot from the supporting cast of the Mavericks to overcome that. Look, the Celtics, yes, they've had some different issues. Yes, they sometimes play with their food, as we've mentioned so many times on this podcast, but like 1 through 6, they're unbelievably deep.
They're pretty good.
And I don't want this to happen, but I think it's going to be Celtics in 6. Bill, I hope you're right. Mavs in 5 is wild, though.
That's crazy.
Tom, as you know,
that's Boston winning one game, Bill. Come on.
If that happens, the city will melt down, and I will be so thrilled about it.
If that happens, I'm coming in here dressed as Lucky the Leprechaun just to troll them. Okay?
Well, you did that a few weeks ago.
You did. You had your Celtics screen on. Hey,
it was Bottega Green. Bottega Green.
Quickly, by the way, we should mention that tonight's line is Celtics minus 6.5. So while we're doing predictions, who do we like tonight?
I'm actually going Boston tonight.
I needed to
Celtics
be Mavs
tonight, Bill.
based on my prediction. Yeah, Mavs by 2. Come on.
I was wondering if you were going to give the Celtics their 1 win tonight, or if you're going to hold out on that one. So, all right, Bill's going to go with the Mavs. He needs it to be the Mavs. Absolutely unbelievable. This was a super fun show. Bill is off to the arena. He's going to get some good food. Ashley's got stuff going on. We're going to be back here on CBS Sports Network tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern. So come back, join us. We'll have all of our Game 1 reactions. But for now, for our NBA insider Bill Ryder, for Ashley Nicole Moss, I'm John Gonzalez. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and enjoy Game 1.